Am I audible to everyone? So good afternoon, students. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Now the time is 2:07. Still only 58 participants have joined out of 116. So more than 50% of need to join. Okay. Right. In the previous classes, we have discussed various what is an operating system, various types of operating system, and its functionality and the services provided by the operating system. So far, we have discussed it. So after discussing all these things, what we understood is operating system is nothing but a set of procedures to perform various tasks. To perform various tasks, right? So various tasks means like in order to execute a user application in the computer system, operating system plays an important role. That's what we understood from the previous discussions. Okay, and it provides an environment within which the programs are executed. User developed programs are executed. Okay, so in order to execute the user programs, we have observed different types of operating systems where all the designs are focused on maximizing the utilization of the CPU. Maximizing the utilization of CPU. That means always we'll try to make our CPUs busy with doing some tasks or executing some tasks, right? So in the batch operating system or the single processor operating system, what happens is at any given point of time, only one job is executed. Of course, even multi-programmed programming operating system is also the same, but the difference between those two are whenever if it allow you to execute only one task, what happens in that case? During the execution of that particular task, if the task requires the services of the IO devices, okay, immediately the control will be transferred to the IO device. Until it gets back the response from the IO device, the CPU is sit idle. Okay, so that is the reason why multi-programming environment is necessary, or why multi-programming environment is required to maximize the utilization of the CPU, where it allows multiple programs or multiple tasks to be executed simultaneously. So in that case, as I told you in the previous class, while executing the, suppose say for example, 3 tasks have submitted to the CPU. Now it initiates the execution of the first task. So during that time, while executing the first task, if the task requires the services of the IO device, immediately what it does, the CPU suspends the execution of the task 1, okay, and it will be initiating the execution of the second task. That means the period of time. the period of time. That means whatever the time the IO device took to complete its operation, that much of time is CPU will execute the second task. Okay. Once the IO device has completed the task one operation, okay, immediately it get a signal from the IO devices, like whatever the task that you have assigned to me has completed it. Like that, it passes some information, controlling information. Here, the controlling information, we are call it as an interrupt. Interrupt. Say, for example, now I'm taking the class for you. All of a sudden, if HODs or principals are made a call to me, immediately attend a meeting. Okay, like that, if they pass a message, it is an interrupt for me because I have to do something. Either I have to suspend this class or I have to suspend this class in order to attend the meeting, right? So that is what we are calling it as an interrupt. The same cases exist in case of execution of your tasks with the CPU, right? So the IO device generate an interrupt signal. What it in the form of messages, what it contains is, so like whatever the task that you have assigned, I was completed it. So my task is over. Like that, it passes. So that becomes an interrupt to the execution of the second task, because right now the CPU is executing the second task. So once it got the interrupt from the IO device, immediately it suspends the execution of the second task and move back to the task one for execution where it was stopped previously. Hope you're all clear with this point. Why multi-programming environment has required, right? So in all the cases at the outset, if you observe, uh, only the one reason is will try to make our CPUs busy, so that the number of tasks can be completed uh, within a timeline. Okay. So that is about what we have learned previously. So, and one other important point is operating system is able to do various operations, like it is able to manage the resources, like file management, memory management, resource allocation, resource management, like various services that it provides for us. Okay. Now let us have a look at about the various structures, or simply the operating system structure. So before going to discuss about the structure, one should understand what is a kernel, what is kernel mode, and what is user mode, so that you can easily understand. So first, let me clear what is a kernel. A kernel is the core part of an operating system which manages system resources, which manages system resources. And it also acts like a bridge between application and hardware of the computer. I'll show you the diagram. So, yeah. So this is what exactly a kernel. Kernel acts as a bridge between the user, like that means user is going to interact with the application programs. So that's why you can call it as user or application and the hardware of the computer. Okay, so it is one of the first programs loaded on the startup. Okay, so in this scenario, what happens is, without having this kernel, you cannot interact with this one. You cannot interact with the hardware components, whatever it may be, right? So it is one of the important part of operating system, because as the definition which we observed, operating system is acts as an interface between application program and the hardware itself, right? Application programs and the hardware. That means this total space is occupied by operating system. Now, why we are discussing or why we are showing this kernel as an important aspect in this is it plays an important role, especially in allocating the resources and all. Okay, so that is the reason it is one of the core part of operating system. As I told you, operating system was developed with a set of procedures. Probably this kernel may be one of the set of it. Right? Now, let us have a look at about what is happening in kernel mode and what is happening in the user mode of the CPU operation. Suppose when you operate, when you try to execute a program in kernel mode, what kind of functionality it will have, and if you try to do the same with the user mode, what kind of uh, functionality that it can perform. Let us see. Okay, so CPU executes certain instructions only when it is in the kernel mode. For example, we're talking about memory management applications, where, see, as I tell you, we'll have a small amount of main memory which is accessed by CPU directly. Okay, so whenever if you try to execute multiple tasks, it is not possible for us to accommodate all these tasks in the main memory. So initially what happens is they were stored in the disk, and they are waiting for the chance so that they will be loaded into the main memory so that CPU can execute those tasks. Right? Here, some of the functionalities can be executed. That means they should be done in the lower level itself only. You cannot do at higher level, that is application level. Right? If your task is running in kernel mode, you just remember that those operations are done by operating system only. Okay, operating system means, so internally it will happen, it won't be visible to the user, or it won't be performed by the user itself. You don't have user, as a user you don't have right to perform those operations. Okay, so they allow implementation of special operations whose execution by the user program. That means how the user can utilize it, in the user program he may specify all these operations, whatever he wants, in order to execute the program. Okay, so those instructions, with the help of placing this kernel mode instructions in your program, automatically the control will be redirected from user mode to the kernel mode, where it can perform the operations internally and finally it produce the response. Okay, so the, okay, so these are the some of the operations which we can perform in the kernel mode. That is, the operating system puts the CPU in kernel mode when it is executing the kernel. So that means the operation itself is executed in the kernel itself only. That means the operation is executed only these two. Okay, and that means there is no interaction to the user itself. It won't allow the user to interact while executing this particular process. Okay, so that means, for example, what I can say you what is the meaning of this particular statement is, whenever if you try to open a file, okay, so what happens internally? The operating system will redirect your request to the file manager. File manager will verify whether is there any content is available in the file allocation table with the names specified by the user. if it is present in it, it looks for the address where it was stored on the disk. Okay, immediately it passes that information to the another system program called loader, which will take care of loading whatever the file which you want to open. So from the physical location to the main memory. Okay, so this internal process, we can call it as a kernel mode of operation. That means that user cannot perform all these things. Internally, it is going to be communicated with one another. Hope you're all clear with this point. The operating system puts the CPU in user mode when the user program is in execution, so that user program cannot interface with the operating system program. That means when if it is in the user program, you cannot directly communicate with the CPU. You cannot directly communicate with the memory device to perform certain operation through your program. Okay, or you cannot operate some other devices which are connected to the system through your program. Okay, so user level instructions does not require special privilege. For example, for adding, pushing, these are all the called as user level instructions. Whereas kernel level instructions, we need to have some special privilege. Okay, all right. That is about a little bit about user mode and kernel mode. Now let us look at about micro kernel, because these are all essential for us to understand the structure of the OS. So that is the reason, even though it is not present in your syllabus, I just want to share all these things with you. Okay, so microkernel is one of the classification of the kernel. It is also a kernel, first of all. What is kernel? It is a core part of the operating system. So microkernel is also a core part of the operating system. Being a kernel, it manages all the system resources, as I told you. But in microkernel, the user services and the kernel services are placed in two different spaces. User level services are placed in user space, address space, whereas kernel level services are placed in the kernel address space. Okay, now you can see the diagram how a microkernel is constructed. This is the hardware and this is the application. So meanwhile, you will have two different parts. Okay, so the meaning of this one is it provides the minimal services of process and memory management. The communication between the client program and application and the services running in user address space is established through message passing. Here, one more important point which I want to mention you is, while executing multiple tasks, it is possible to modify one process with another process, or one process may affect the execution of the another process. For example, when you are executing your program, if it is an infinite loop, for example, suppose a for loop is there in your program, while executing your program, it enters into the infinite loop. What happens in that case? So your system is continuously showing the output, like it won't be exit from the loop. In that case, whatever the other processes which are running in the system is also be affected because of your problem with your process. Okay, so here we need to maintain, or we need to distinguish, the operating system is able to differentiate problematic process and as well as normal process. That means the processes which causes the problems and the processes which were executed in a smooth way. So in such a way, it is able to differentiate. So in order to do all these things, we are supposed to use this particular one. Okay, so of course, these are the some other things which are not necessary for you. Again, move back to the so now let us see operating system structure. Basically, we'll have two different types of course, not two. Actually, we have four, but in that majorly will be classified into two categories. One is monolithic structure and another one is layered structure. So in the monolithic structure, the operating system runs as a single program in the kernel mode. Okay? So as I told you, the OS is written as a collection of procedures linked together into a single large executable program. So whenever if you use this particular technique for developing your new operating system is, so in that case, what you are supposed to be understand and what you are supposed to be design your new operating system is each procedure in the system, as I told you, for example, in the better way, what way you can understand it is, for handling memory, we'll have one procedure, memory management procedure. For handling IO devices, we have a procedure, IO device procedure. Like that, for each and every functionality that or the service that it was provided by the operating system, you can think about it as a module. Okay, if all these modules together connected with one another, finally they will form a single program. That is what we are called as an operating system. Okay, so if this kind of scenario, if you are following for your new OS, what things you are supposed to be observed here itself is each procedure in the system is free to call any other procedure, because all the procedures, they can exchange their capabilities one with another. Right? And this basic structure of the OS contains three different layers. One is the main procedure, second one is the service procedures, and third one is utility procedures. You can observe in the diagram itself. Main procedure, service procedures, and utility procedure. Okay, so the main program that invokes the requested service procedure. So first, it starts the main program. Okay, from that, according to the operation, it make a request to the service procedures. Service procedures means it is a set of service procedures that carry out the system calls. Okay, so again, in turn, in order to execute that service procedure, the service procedures may interact with the utility procedures. Utility procedures do things that are needed by the several service procedures, that such as fetching the data from the user programs. Okay, such kind of operations are performed by these utility programs, whereas this service procedures that takes care of the execution of your system call, or whatever the operation that is requested by the main procedure. For example, the main procedure wants the services of this particular procedure, right? In turn, in order to complete this service, if it requires the services of utility programs, directly it can interact with it, and together these two will work on it, and finally they'll complete the task and submit it to the main procedure. So this kind of structure, if you are following, this is called as monolithic structure. Right? So the advantage of this monolithic approach are it provides the CPU scheduling, memory management, file management, and other operating systems. Other operating system functions through system calls. So very soon we are after completion of this, we will discuss the what exactly system call, what kind of system calls that we have, and even in the lab itself we'll practice all these system calls. So don't worry about what exactly the system call. Very soon we are going to be discuss about it, right? So in the monolithic structure, all the operating system operations are performed using system calls. The other one is that it is a single large program or the process running entirely in a single address space. There is no separate user address space and as well as kernel address space as we have discussed in the microkernel. Okay, so that is the advantage. One way it is advantageous. Okay, and coming to the disadvantage of the monolithic approach are that if any one of the service gets failed, for example, any one of the services failed in this layer, it affects the functionality of entire OS. So it leads to the failure of the entire system. And the other one is that if the user has to add any new service, or even you can change the operating system also, but it is not correct, because always it is supposed to restrict the users to modify the operating system. That is the reason why we are placed it in the ROM itself, read-only memory. It is a permanent memory where you cannot perform any kind of modifications. You are able to view it, you are able to read it only. You cannot modify it. If it allows to modify, what happens? It leads to the malfunctioning of the operating system. Suppose if you delete one line of the code in the operating system program, it leads to the malfunctioning of the operating system. So with this, you can, it is also possible to the user to modify the OS also. So these are the drawbacks of the monolithic structure. So in order to overcome these things, people have developed another approach called as a layered structure. That means you can imagine the operating system would be developed in this layers fashion, layer 0, layer 1, layer n, like that, right? Always layer n is able to interact with the lower levels of the layers. For example, layer 2 is able to interact with layer 1 and layer 0 only. That means lower level, it is able to interact with the lower levels only. So the layered structure is generalization of the monolithic approach is to organize the OS as a hierarchy of layers. Hierarchy of layers, each one constructed upon the one below it, right? So layer 0 is initially constructed above it, above on it, layer 1 is constructed above on it, layer 2, like that, whatever the number of layers that you have. And the operating system is broken down into number of layers, that is, you can call it as levels. Okay, this is one level, this is another level, this is like that. Instead of representing the operating system as a set of procedures, here we'll represent all those things in a layered approach. What happens in that case? Say, for example, if the layer 0 is not functioning in a proper way, so that remaining all the layers of the operating system is working as usual. But whereas in this case, if any one of the system procedure, service procedure gets failed, the entire system is going to be collapsed, right? So the main advantage of this layered approach is the simplicity of the construction and debugging. The layers are selected so that each uses the functions and services of only the lower level layers. It won't use the services of the upper layer, right? So the major difficulty with the layered approach involves appropriately defining the various layers. So how many layers are required, or what way we can divide the total functionality of the operating system into different layers, right? So that is a layered approach. And now coming to the microkernel, as we have already discussed, this method of structure, the OS removing all non-essential components from the kernel and implementing as system and user level programs. So here, whatever the basic functionality that it was provided by the operating system only be executed or be constructed as one side. Okay, so the main function of this microkernel is to provide communication between the client program and the various services that are also running in the user space. Just it is used for communication purpose only. Okay, so wherever, if your requirement is just like networking and all, then you can think about this microkernel kind of structure of defining your voice. Okay, and loadable kernel modules. So the idea of this approach is that kernel is to provide core services, okay, while other services are implemented dynamically as the kernel is running. So wherever you require the service, automatically it comes. In such a way, this particular, that means they are all available, depends upon the requirement. Instead of loading all these things at a single space, just we'll allow only the core part initially. Whenever if you need the services of other module, okay, as and when you require, you just load it into the, okay, dynamically we are loading. So the kernel has set of core components and links in additional services via modules, either at boot time or during a runtime. So it depends upon our requirement. The modules or the submodules are to be loaded rather than loading all the things at single shot. Okay. There are 7 types of loadable kernel modules in Sun Solaris operating system. You can think of scheduling classes, file systems, loadable system calls, executable formats, streams modules, miscellaneous, device and clusters. Of course, like that for each and every operating system, we'll have certain loadable kernel modules, right? So these are the examples of Solaris operating system. Now, hybrid systems. So another kind of structure is hybrid systems. So many operating systems are not based on one model of the operating system because these are the individual functionalities of the various structures. Suppose if your requirement is probably is different with this available, what we have to do? Either we need to develop a new, entirely new according to your requirement, or by joining any one of these two so that it can fulfill our requirement, we need to be verified. So whenever if you combine more than one and make it as a single one, that is what we are called as a hybrid, right? So it depends upon your requirement. It is also possible to combine more than one structure into a single one. Okay. So contain multiple operating systems that have different approaches to performance, security, usability needs, etc., etc. So the hybrid operating system may allow one operating system to fulfill one set of requirements, and another operating system is to fulfill the rest. Okay, so depends upon your requirement. You can choose two. So among those two, one may be executed with not only two. You can also add more than two also, right? So here our intention is one set of services are executed by one operating system and rest with another one if you combine only two operating systems, right? So that is about the OS structures, structure of OS, right? Now let us move to the introduction of system calls. The system calls provides an interface between the services made available by an OS. For example, you want to create a process. You want to create a process. Create the process in the sense you want to initiate the starting the execution of a program. So for that, what way we will inform to the, or what way the operating system is going to be activated when a user starts the execution of a program. So what are the things that are essential starts the execution of the process? So these are all things. Okay. Like that for storing their memory management equation or IO devices, whatever it may be. So system calls acts as an interface between the services made available by an OS. So system calls can be handled by kernel of a OS, and we can call the system calls by means of a program. So here two things. User can specify the system calls within the program. By using that, he may interact with the hardware components, or sometimes OS itself, it performs certain operation, itself make calls to the system calls to perform the certain operations. Okay, and a system call provides the services of the operating system to the user program via API, application program interface. And system calls are the only entry point into the kernel system, and all programs needing resources must use system calls. I'll show you the table so that you can easily understand. Uh, so here you can observe types of the system calls. Process control. Okay, so to end the process or to suspend the execution of the process or to load, to execute, creation, termination. So for all these are the different types of system calls which are related to the process. Similarly, file manipulation, creation of the file, deletion of the file, for opening, for closing. See, these all here you can observe, these all things are done at lower level, that is hardware level, but user is at higher level. He made requests, so physically one will take care of doing all these activities at lower level. So that is what we are calling it as a system call. That can be done with the help of system call. Hope you are all clear with this point right now, right? So these are the different types of system calls. Okay, you'll see these things in the next class. Uh, yeah, all of you revise yourself quickly what you understood regarding OS structures. Now I'll ask somebody to differentiate one with another. So first of all, is there any queries? Yeah, now you can unmute yourself and you can ask if you have any query. Did you understand the structure of the OS? Yes? If you have any query, you can ask. No issue. LE507, you have unmuted your mic. Do you have any question? Five zero eight. Unmute yourself. 508. 19B8 180 508. Are you there? 508. Five zero eight. 519. 519. Are you there or not? I think it is sleeping class. As that a few people are not responding to my call. Okay. Right. Anyway, this is about the OS structure. So, in the next class, I'll give you a small assignment to you regarding the. I just want to know the understanding level of the concept, how extent you understood all these things. I just give you a simple assignment. Okay. Probably it may be in the form of an objective exam or something else. Okay, I'll share this information with you. Don't worry. Unit 1 PDF I will share with you. Okay, so all of you. LE 507. LE 507.
Sir.
Do you have any question?
Sir, system call ki ATM example avudda sir.
System call ki ATM exam. అంటే ఎలా?
అంటే ఇంటర్ఫేస్ ఇస్తుంది కదా సార్.
అవును.
మనం కమ్యూనికేట్ అవ్వడానికి.
అవును అవును.
ఆ వేలో చెప్పండి సార్.
నువ్వే చెప్పాలి, నువ్వు ఆల్రెడీ చెప్పేసావు దానికి.
అనుకుంటున్నాను సార్ ఏటీఎం ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అని.
చెప్పు, పర్వాలేదు. ఏటీఎం ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ద్వారా సిస్టమ్ కాల్ ని ఎలా ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తుంది చెప్పు, పర్వాలేదు, నో ప్రాబ్లం. గుడ్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్పావు.
అంటే సార్ బ్యాలెన్స్ చెక్ చేసుకోవడానికి, డిపాజిట్ విత్డ్రా చేయడానికి ఆప్షన్స్ వస్తాయి కదా సార్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్.
అవును.
స్క్రీన్ లో అలా అది ఇంటర్ఫేస్ అని అలా అనుకుంటున్నాను సార్.
యా యు ఆర్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ రైట్. So internally, because physically your account is not present in the ATM machine itself, your account is present in the bank server, which is somewhere. But with the help of this ATM machine, you are able to interact and you can download, I mean, whatever it may be the operation that you are able to perform, you can, right? Like verifying that. A very good example you have taken, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So any other queries?